Yoga of the Supreme Person or Purushottam Yoga. It starts by Krishna mentioning that Urdhvam Ula Adha Shakham Ashwatham Rahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Vedasa Vedavit. That it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So Krishna is saying that there is an imperishable banyan tree, comparing this material world to the imperishable banyan tree, and it has its roots upward. So where does the material world come from, spring from? Comes from the spiritual world. So who is the original creator of the material world? Krishna. So he's saying that although we know that this material world is temporary, but it is going to change its form, just like everything is eternal. All living entities are eternal. Similarly, in the world, material nature, they are also eternal. So it exists as Mahatattva, so it has its own soul. So, but it's right now, when it is in the material conditioned state, its roots are upward in the spiritual world, and the leaves are the Vedic hymns. The leaves are the Vedic hymns, like Vedas are the ones that mention so much about Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda is by which the living entities perform activities, pious or impious. So that's why the leaves are, and the twigs are the senses. So we perceive things and we act in this material world without knowledge of the spiritual world. However, spiritual world is kind of the origin for this material world. The variegatedness is there in the spiritual world as well as it is in the material world. But this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. That's where the happiness is eternal, life is eternal. Over here you have miserable life and temporary life. So what Krishna is saying, that one must cut down our connection with this material world and go back to our original home, that is in the spiritual realm. So it also mentions that the real form of this tree cannot be perceived. You don't know how it is going to be because we are under the modes of material nature. So no one can understand where it ends, where it begins, where the foundation is. But with determination, we must cut our relationship with this material world, where we have very deep-rooted history, birth after birth after birth. So if we get the information about the spiritual world, we should aspire for that which is permanent, which is full of happiness, which is immortal. So that's what we should strive. And Krishna gives example, and he also mentions how you can reach that place. And he also describes how that place looks like. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, false association, and who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So Krishna is giving that qualification, how you can qualify to attain that eternal kingdom. And he talks about na tad bhasyate suryo na shashanko na pavaka yad gatva na nivartante tad dham paramam mama. That supreme abode of mine is not illumined by sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. And some information in the past in chapter 7 and chapter 8 was also given about Krishna's realm. That it talks about the Chintamani and the desire trees and Surabhi cows. So he is also further giving a little bit more information that those are all self-luminous. Krishna's look is self-luminous. You don't need any of those things. And then he mentions that originally, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Manasasthani Indriyani Prakriti Sthani Karshati. And he mentions that all the living entities in this conditioned world, in the material nature, are my eternal fragmental parts. And due to this conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So we see that, we read that purport also. So the living entities are eternal. Eternal means from time immemorial, they are eternal fragmental parts. They existed just like Krishna exists, and they are now in conditioned state in the material world, and they are struggling with their senses within the three modes of material nature. I will start from text 8. Shariram yadvapnoti yachapyu yachap utkrama tishvara utkrama tishvara grihit vaitani sanyati vayur gandha nivashatafashayat. He mentions the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, here the living entity is described as Ishwar, the controller of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade, and if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him on to the next type of body. If he has made his consciousness like that of a cat or a dog, he is sure to change to a cat's or a dog's body. If he has fixed his consciousness on godly qualities, he will change into the form of a demigod. And if he is in Krishna consciousness, he will be transferred to Krishna Lok in the spiritual world and will associate with Krishna. It is a false claim that after the annihilation of this body, everything is finished. The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. One gets a different body according to karma, and he has to quit this body in due course. It is stated here that the subtle body, which carries the conception of the next body, develops another body in the next life. This process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling while in the body is called karshati, or struggle for existence. Text 9. Shrotram chakshu sparshanam cha rasanam bhranam eva cha adhisthaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate. Translation: the living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Purport. In other words, if the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life he gets a cat or a dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is originally pure, like water, but if you mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit soul is pure, but consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When therefore one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a corresponding body. He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, dog, hog, demigod, or one of many other forms, for there are 8.4 million species. Text 10. Utkramantasthitham vapi punjanam va gunanvitam vimudana pashyanti jnana chakshusha. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Purport. The word Gyan Chakshusha is very significant. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what form of body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why he is living in a particular type of body. This requires a great amount of knowledge understood from Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Every living entity is quitting his body under certain circumstances. He is living under certain circumstances and he is enjoying under certain circumstances under the spell of material nature. As a result, he is suffering different kinds of happiness and distress under the illusion of sense enjoyment. Persons who are everlastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand their change of body and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general, for their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. Text 11. Yatanto yoginaschainam pashyanta yatman manayasvasthitam pashyanti atmani avasthitam yatantopi akratatmano nainam pashyanti achetasa. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. Purport. There are many transcendentalists on the path of spiritual self-realization, but one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. The word yogina is significant in this connection. In the present day, there are many so-called yogis and there are many so-called associations of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastic exercise and are satisfied if the body is well built and healthy. They have no other information. They are called yatantopi akritatmana, Even though they are endeavoring in so-called yoga system, they are not self-realized. Such people cannot understand the process of the transmigration of the soul. Only those who are actually in the yoga system and have realized the self, the world, and the Supreme Lord, in other words, the Bhakti yogis, are engaged in pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness, can understand how things are taking place. Text 12. Yadatya yad aditya gatam tejo jagad bhashyate khilam yat chandramsi yat chaganu tat tejo vidhi mamakam. The splendor of the sun which dissipates the darkness of this whole world comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of the fire are also from me. Purport. The unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place, but one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. Everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of the electricity or fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and He is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home. From this verse, we can understand that the sun is illuminating the whole solar system. There are different universes and solar systems, and there are different suns, moons, and planets also. But in each universe, there is only one sun. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, 21 shloka. The moon is one of the stars, Nakshatranam Aham Asyashi. Sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord. With the rise of the sun, the activities of human beings are set up. They set fire to prepare their foodstuff, they set fire to start the factories, etc. So many things are done with the help of fire. Therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Without their help, no living entity can live. So, if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then one's Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. The moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Without His mercy, there cannot be sun. Without His mercy, there cannot be moon. And without His mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. Gam avishya cha bhutani dharayami aham ojasa pushnami choshadhi sarva somo bhutva rasatmaka. Translation: I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. Purport: it is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. It is said there that one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So, due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body is dead. The body sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like straw and other things. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His energy is sustaining each planet just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust's falling. But if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets which are floating in the air are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By his strength and energy, all moving and non moving things stay in their place. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word Rasatmaka is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon. Text 14. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Prani Nam Deham Ashrita Pranapana Samayukta Pachamyannam Chaturvidham. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the four kinds of foodstuff. Purport: according to Ayurvedic Shastra, we understand that there is a fire in the stomach which digests all food sent there. When the fire is not blazing, there is no hunger. And when the fire is in order, you become hungry. Sometimes, when the fire is not going nicely, treatment is required. In any case, this fire is representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedic mantras, Brihadaranya Upanishad, 5th canto, 9th sloka, 9th chapter, 1st sloka, also confirm that the Supreme Lord or Brahman is situated in the form of fire within the stomach and is digesting all kinds of foodstuff. I am Agnir Vaishwanaro Yo Yam Anta Purushe Yenedam Annam Pachyate. Therefore, since he is helping the digestion of all kinds of foodstuff, the living entity is not independent in the eating process. Unless the Supreme Lord helps him in digesting, there is no possibility of eating. He thus produces and digests foodstuff, and by his grace, we are enjoying life. In the Vedanta Sutra 1.2.27, this is also confirmed. Sabdadibhyo anta pratisthanach cha. The Lord is situated within sound and within the body, within the air, and even within the stomach as the digestive force. There are four kinds of foodstuffs. Some are drunk, some are chewed, some are licked up, and some are sucked. And he is the digestive force for all of them. I will stop here and see if there are any questions or comments this time. Otherwise, tomorrow we will conclude this chapter from 15 to 20 and recap the whole thing if we have time. Shama Mohini, if there is any question. Santosh Prabhu, any question from you? Any difficulty in understanding anything?
No, today it was, I could understand.
Today it was clear, even the first shloka was a little bit clear now?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for joining in. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you, Prabhu.
And
Hare Krishna.
ask your friend also. Kirti or what's his Kevala Bhakti Prabhu also to join.
Okay, sure. I have